Hey guys, so I just got done watching Breaking Bad last night, and basically I started watching it because I literally had heard nothing but good things about it. It was absolutely insane how good everybody said that it was. It's like nobody out there had anything bad whatsoever to say about it. Every single person that has seen it talks about how great it is and everything. It seems to just be like universally acknowledged as like the greatest thing ever. It's like the TV show version of Citizen Kane or something. And having now seen the entire show, I can't really argue with that at all. It is an outstanding show. It's incredibly gripping, and I look forward to watching it again just to get more of a chance to sort of properly collect my thoughts together about it, because I plan to make probably 2 or 3 videos about this show and properly understand what it is about the show that makes it work so well. But yeah, just as an initial reaction, yeah, really satisfying experience. But I thought it might be kind of interesting, just as a first video to make about this show, to just talk about some of the things I didn't like about it, because it is by no means a perfect show or anything. I've not really noticed any negative videos being made about the show, for obvious reasons. It's a good show. So I just thought this might be, kind of interesting as a different perspective. This isn't me saying it's bad or anything. This is just me nitpicking, basically. I think, other than perhaps the number one thing on this little top 10 list I've made is, but number one is the only one that isn't really a nitpick. Alright, so number 10. I think there's a bit too much setup, to be honest. I think, it's kind of common at the start of some of the seasons for there to be episodes that are almost entirely set up. And it does kind of drag a little bit. It becomes a little bit boring. I've heard people say that they think the episodes like Fly or 4 Days Out are boring, but to me that isn't boring really. That's really fascinating, those kinds of episodes, because that's intense character development. It's filler, but I don't really mind filler. I think filler is very important actually, if it helps you to understand better what's going on. And to me, episodes like Fly definitely help me to better understand these characters and what's going on between the two of them. And also I just love Jesse and Walt together. But setup, I think, if you give it a bit too much all at once, it can become a little bit grating at times. And particularly at the start of a season, the start of season 3, the first episode of that, No Mass, in particular, I thought was kind of a bit too much of a drag, a bit too much setting up for things to come later. A bit too much of it all at once, and particularly at the start of the season when you're excited to see what's going to happen next, it did get a little bit grating, and I wanted to see things move along a little bit faster. Even just waiting 24 hours to watch the next episode was kind of difficult for me at times, when there was a lot of setting up for things to come later. But at the same time, it keeps you gripped and gets you excited and everything. Number 9, the flash forwards in season 5 and the final season, which I like to think of as season 6. I mean, it started airing, practically a year after the previous season ended. That's season 6, honestly. I don't know why they called it the second half of season 5 or the final season or whatever. But yeah, these flash forwards seem like a bit too much of a spoiler to me. Like, obviously with the first one, they're trying to sort of make the audience sort of wonder, ooh, what's going on here? What's all this about? What's going on? What's happened with Walt's life? And to me, they'd set up this character of, what was he called? Ed? The vacuum cleaner company guy, who could set you up with a completely new life. They'd set him up in the previous season. And, he wasn't used there, so I'm like, well, they're going to use him later, obviously. It's Chekhov's gun, isn't it? They wouldn't set him up there unless he was going to be used later. So, lo and behold, start of season 5, Walt's got a new name, new identity, new location, completely different appearance. He's found Ed. He's got a new life. That's obviously what's happened, and that is what happened in the end. Setting up the machine gun. The writers, I think, kind of painted themselves into a bit of a corner there, because they admitted that when they wrote that part, they actually didn't know what Walt was going to use that machine gun for. So, there wasn't really anything in that first flash forward I really cared to know, really. It felt like a bit too much of a spoiler, really. I didn't really want to know that was where Walt was going to end up. The second one worked a little bit better, because we saw him going to get the rice, and with the way that the penultimate episode ended, you just sort of assumed he was going to use that on Gretchen and Elliot. He was going to go and kill them, and obviously that's not what he was going to do. He was using it on Lydia. So that worked okay, but the whole thing with seeing the house having, been abandoned and having a fence around it, and, it's completely deserted and everything, again, kind of a spoiler. I didn't really want to know that was where the house ended up, and that was what had happened. I would have kind of been interested to see, particularly with the way that the first half of season 5 ended, thinking, is Walt going to get away with this? Is he going to take his family away and, start a new life somewhere? And is it all going to work out for him? And these flash forwards kind of, sort of, quite blatantly told me, no, it isn't all going to work out for him or anything. Like, the final episode actually did really still surprise me. I did not expect what happened in that episode to be what was going to happen. I thought, it was just going to be a completely tragic ending, but no, Walt actually kind of redeemed himself. So it didn't spoil the episode for me, but there were just some things in the flash forwards, though, that I felt were just things I didn't really care to know. Number 8. This whole plan with Walt poisoning Brock. There's just a lot of things about it that don't really add up to me. I mean, first of all, we're never told exactly how he poisoned Brock. I would have liked to have known that, because, you see him meet Brock in season 5, and he's acting like he doesn't know Brock, and Brock doesn't appear to know him, so presumably he never met Brock when he came to poison him. So did he have Saul do it, and how did Saul come to poison him exactly? How does Brock not suspect anything? Does Brock kind of know that Walt is the one that poisoned him? Does he know that if it wasn't actually Walt that gave him the whatever it was that poisoned him, that had the Lily of the Valley thing in it, does he know that Walt had Saul do it? I don't think a little kid would be able to figure something like that out. So, does he ever see Saul again, and does he go and say to him, you poisoned me, or anything like that? So, I would have liked to have known things like that. But there's just a few other things about Walt's whole plan with this, poisoning of Brock that don't really add up to me. I mean, first of all, it's kind of dependent on Jesse not noticing that the ricin cigarette has gone missing before he learns that Brock has been poisoned. It then is dependent on Andrea phoning Jesse and telling him that Brock's been poisoned. And then after that's happened, that Jesse then noticing that the ricin cigarette has gone missing. So there's variables there, and then of course Jesse has to sort of figure out for himself basically what has actually happened, that Walt has poisoned Brock, and then go to his house and point a gun at Walt. So likely that kind of thing would happen. I think that Jesse would be able to figure that kind of thing out, and that he would be enraged at Walt because he was already kind of mad at him. But it just does seem like a lot of sort of variables with that. And then with Walt's story to Jesse about how it was actually Gus, there's just things about that don't add up there. I mean, how does Gus know about Brock? How could he have, Walt sort of says, he's seen Jesse on the security cameras with the ricin cigarettes, How could he have deduced just from watching Jesse on security cameras that he has a cigarette in his cigarette pack with ricin in it? How could he possibly tell that just from watching him on security cameras, Is he suggesting, like, what was his name, Tyrus? Has seen Jesse with a ricin cigarette? How would he be able to figure that out? How could he have known that, Jesse had seen things like that, and, Tyrus... Would Tyrus tell Gus about things like that? There's just... Obviously it's a story, it's not what actually happened, so I guess you have to just assume Jesse isn't thinking about things like this at this particular moment, because his mind's racing, he's got a gun pointing at Walt and everything. So, I guess you can just assume, Jesse just didn't think of that. But, again, there's just a lot of variables to this plan, a lot of things that have to go Walt's way. It just doesn't seem like a very sensible kind of plan that's particularly likely to work in reality. Number 7, Todd. Just the character of Todd in general, really. Didn't like him at all. Really didn't take any kind of interest in him. He's so bland, so uninteresting. Just an evil son of a bitch, really. Very satisfying seeing Jesse beat the one to kill him in the final episode. I got up and cheered when that happened. Yeah, alright, Jesse. But just as a character, I just didn't care for him. He was just very bland, very uninteresting, and just evil. I was perfectly fine with Jack and his gang really just being the evil guys that needed to be killed at the end, really. I didn't really felt like I needed really to see Todd or know who Todd was, really. And he was like the main character in all of that. It's like... I just didn't care about him. I wasn't interested in seeing him. Every time he was on screen, it's like, oh, Todd, great. The whole thing with the pink teddy bear, number 6. It was nothing in the end. Nothing of any significance, nothing that really meant anything. Who was in those body bags? No one, really. Wasn't anything. The pink teddy bear itself, was just a thing that we saw in those previews, and then we never saw it again. Yeah, the plane crashed, it just barely related to the actions of the main characters, basically. It didn't really affect the main characters in any kind of major way. I mean, it smashed Walt's windscreen, which resulted in a couple of comedic moments at the start of the next season or everything. It delayed, procedures, moving forward into the next season, I suppose. It caused Jesse to have a little bit of grieving at the start of the season, but by about the second episode, it was forgotten about. It didn't matter at all by that point. Some people saying that there's some kind of symbolism to, like, the bear or the plane crash, and being a symbol of the predicament Walt was in or something. Obviously there's the fact that Walt is wearing a pink jumper when it happens, and that's the same colour as the bear. It doesn't really mean anything. It's just sort of clever, really. And just this whole sort of teasing us the whole season about what it could mean, what it's about, and everything. It was nothing really in the end. It just kind of annoyed me that. Gus's death, number 5. I just thought it was a bit silly, really. It actually did fool me when I first watched it. The first time I watched it, it was like, oh, so that bomb didn't do anything. And then, of course, the camera pans across, and it's like, he actually has been killed. But that just opens up more questions for me. It's like, if he was killed by the bomb, how was he able to walk out the room? That really doesn't make any kind of sense to me. And that whole shot of half his face being burnt off like that, it just looked a bit silly, really, I thought. Everybody talks about that, how that's such a great moment. Everybody loves, it's one of the best moments in the show everyone talks about. So I'm obviously in the minority here, but to me, it was just kind of stupid, really. It was a bit of a joke, really. They were just trolling us by making us think that the bomb hadn't killed him or anything. Number 4, some of the things at the end of the last episode were left unresolved. What does Jesse do now? Presumably he wants to track down Brock and make sure that he's alright, I suppose. What exactly did happen to Brock after his mother was killed, I wonder? That was never brought up. We were never told anything about what happened there. Huel, the last time we saw him was in the safe house. He doesn't appear at all in the last 3 episodes, so is he alright? Did he leave the safe house in the end? Because it was Hank who left him there, and Hank's dead now. Presumably Jesse, if he has any money left, will want to phone Ed and start a new life somewhere. But I would imagine first and foremost he would want to track down Brock and make sure he's all right. How does he do that without being caught? Because obviously the police will be after him now. Is Walt Jr. all right? Is he coped all right with what his father's done and everything? Those two things, seem like a pretty big deal that I would have liked to have known exactly what happened to them. Number 3, whole thing with Jesse meeting his family and being kind of distant from them, and the fact that his brother was smoking pot, all the way back in season 1, never went anywhere. Nothing ever happened with that. We saw his parents twice during the rest of the series, and they were just there to sort of say, to just sort of move Jesse in a particular direction, kick him out of his house and then sell his house back to him without realising it's him. But we never saw his brother again, and so that never went anywhere. That was never of any real importance at all, so why was it necessary? I don't know, do you think Skilligan think, if they were going to use Jesse's family for any kind of writing later on, they needed to set them up, perhaps? But, it was a setup without a payoff, basically. This show, like I said, is like so good with the Chekhov's gun tactic, almost literally in a sense with, at the start of season 5, Walt having that machine gun. And this whole thing with Jesse's family didn't go anywhere. Number 2, the female characters, just in general, seem kind of lame. They're all sort of damsels in distress, basically. Skylar and Marie, they're always like panicking or throwing up their arms, like, oh, what are we going to do? I can't go to the police, I can't bear, to tell anyone about this thing that's going on, screaming and shouting and not knowing what to do, panicking constantly. It gets a bit grating after a while. Lydia, as another character, who's constantly sort of looking to, Jack's gang or Todd to do things for her, basically. It seems very unusual in this show for any female character to step in and actually do something. The one time I can think, prior to the last season, where a female character did sort of step in and try and do something about a situation is when Jane gets Jesse his money. And then when Walt gives him his money, what does Walt say to him? He says, "Nice job wearing the pants." Which is a fair point, I suppose, because it was Jesse's money. But that specific praise did kind of put me off. It did kind of, didn't really have to go for that particular direction, make fun of the fact that, Jane is a woman. And a woman, helping out a man in this kind of way, it's just not right, or something. It's cowardly or something. Right, welcome to day 2 of this video. battery on my camera died as I was in the process of recording this, so I've had to get things sorted out with that and get it fixed. And so anyway, here I am to finish the video that I started a few days ago, actually. So anyway, number one on this list would be the character of Marie, just in general. Except for the final season. I actually liked her in that final season. But yeah, other than that, I really don't understand the purpose of the character. I mean, I guess it's a way of connecting, Skylar and Waltz to, the character of Hank, because, she's Hank's wife and Skylar's sister. Other than that, I can't understand what her purpose is. She's just kind of an annoying, kind of bumbling kind of idiot, panicking over the situation, fretting over things. What was all that thing with her stealing that diamond tiara in the first season? I guess it was sort of, tying back to the idea of, what would Skylar do if she found out about what Walt was up to. I don't really think she, has much value for her sister. I don't think Skylar really takes much value in her. I don't really feel I enjoy Walt and Skylar, actually. I feel like there's an actual connection between the two of them. Hank and Marie, I really don't see that between the two of them at all. There's just a lot of fretting and interfering with people's lives that I don't like. The main sort of trait that the fans seem to enjoy about her is the fact that she wears purple a lot. I mean, what's that all about? What was that whole thing with her, going into open house things and pretending to be other people and stealing things? But that never went anywhere. What was the point of that? I kind of sympathised with her when Hank was buying those minerals. And, he was just trying to get some control out of his life. Obviously, he was sort of hating the fact that he couldn't use his legs or anything. I kind of sympathised with her there, but again, she didn't really do anything to try and help the situation or anything. It's just a lot of her just sort of bumbling around, not knowing what to do in difficult situations and everything. It just irritated me. I just did not like any scenes she was in at all. Except for the final season, actually, I think she did a good job taking control of, difficult circumstances, having sort of loyalties being divided, with her sister being loyal to Walt, and obviously she has to be loyal to Hank, because Hank is her husband, really. And she puts, her differences or her rifts with Skylar aside once things get resolved, and she makes things up with Skylar, and she's the one who inspires her or motivates her to tell Flynn about what his father is. She does a very good job of, pushing Hank to take control of the situation, taking action to, put Waltz away, bringing in Jesse Pinkman and everything. So in the final season, I actually liked what Marie did, what she was adding to the plot. She didn't panic, she didn't fret or anything. She actually was quite mature and took control of, situations and everything. She didn't really get any kind of ending in the final episode, really. We just saw her briefly and that was it. But yeah, other than that, really didn't like that character at all. I kind of wish she wasn't in the show at all, really. I'd never enjoyed any of the scenes that she was in or anything. But anyway, yeah, that's that. So those are the 10 things that I don't like about the show Breaking Bad. But otherwise, it's an awesome show, and I hope to, talk a lot about why I think the show works in a few upcoming videos. But that's just things I don't like about it. I wanted to get off my chest to start off with. So, see you soon, guys. Bye.